Hello everyone, I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing legendary Telltale games, Transformers, and more. Welcome back to another Transformers EarthSpark review, and this will be our second last review of the first batch of Season 1 of EarthSpark. Today we're going to be looking at Season 1, Episode 8, Decoy, and in the fandom that I've seen so far, this is pretty much everyone's favorite episode for the most part, with the exception of Episodes 9 and 10 being pretty high up there as well. And I got to agree, Episode 8 easily is, in my mind, one of the best episodes of this whole 10 episode arc, alongside, in my mind, episode 9, 10, and 4. Those 4 episodes are probably my favorites of the entire series so far. But yeah, this episode is huge, and as I stated before in my review of the last episode, episode 7, Family and Friends, that's mostly due to the part that we finally get our premiere of Soundwave in EarthSpark, and with him being the center stage of this episode alongside several other characters who get introduced this episode as well, it is easily without a doubt, it's no wonder why so many people love this episode. And yeah, it's just so good. And similar to how we had episodes in the past, such as Traditions being the Twitch and Alex episode, we had House Rules as the Thrash episode. I'd argue and say Decoy is an episode that's mostly about Optimus and Megatron, which, even though the Terrans and B do get a lot of spotlight in this episode as well, this episode is really focused on Optimus and Megatron, and I absolutely love that. So we're gonna go ahead and see everything what this episode did right and why it's so loved by the fandom. Episode 8, Decoy, starts out with a brand new Decepticon, well, not entirely brand new to EarthSpark, I should say, and that is Ravage. Ravage is seen retreating from a forest into this like abandoned, like rundown factory, carrying Agent Slaughter's like ID tag in his mouth. So we get our first proper look at EarthSpark Ravage here in this moment, and I absolutely love his design. It's very G1 and IDW inspired in the fact that his alt mode still his design still resembles that of a Panther, but his colors and overall design are very different from that of, say, Bayverse or G1, where in G1 and IDW, for instance, he's got the plain black paint job with the white or silvery legs. Here, EarthSpark Ravage actually instead has more of a very periwinkle, almost a bit purple colored main color, and then his legs are actually more white, very similar to that of Shattered Glass Ravage, actually. So I absolutely love EarthSpark Ravage's design. He still retains his red eyes like G1 and IDW, and yeah, I just love his design. So Ravage is carrying Agent Slaughter's ID tag when he's being chased down by Optimus and Megatron. It's at this point that Laserbeak comes in, battling Optimus and Megatron as well. Laserbeak's design is just like Ravage, in the fact that it's very heavily G1 inspired. But just like with Ravage, all of Laserbeak's black spots, or spots that are usually black like in G1 and IDW, are instead this very light gray almost. But the reds and yellows that are traditional of Laserbeak, though, do still exist. And we get a little scene here where Optimus is struggling, having to deal with both Ravage and Laserbeak on his own, and though Megatron seems to be a lot more hesitant to help out, he does. And eventually there's one really brutal part where Megatron grabs Laserbeak by his beak, swings him around a bit, and then just throws him into a tree with enough force that his beak actually gets stuck in the tree, sticking him there for a bit. And I was like totally shocked at her, like, damn, Megatron, like, calm down. These are Soundwave's boys. You ruled over them at some point. So like, why are you being so hard on them? But clearly this is apparently Megatron's way of holding back, because Optimus, after they subdue Ravage and Laserbeak, Optimus actually chastises Megatron for not using his fusion cannon on them or just going all out on them, though Megatron tries to advocate for them, saying that they're just small cassettes, that they're just essentially children, that they weren't even doing anything bad, just playing a prank on Agent Slaughter by stealing his ID badge. But it's at this point, though, when suddenly a laser beam comes out of the woods and strikes Optimus or Megatron, knocking him down, and we get introduced to our final cassette for this in this episode, and that is Frenzy. So unlike other Frenzies in the past where they're either red or blue, EarthSpark Frenzy is actually purple, which is kind of a nice subversion, considering that since it's heavily implied that Rumble may be dead already, as we saw back in episode 7 with the story Bumblebee told Marabi and Mo. But the other important thing here is that Frenzy is actually female in EarthSpark and not male. This is the first time ever in Transformers history that we've had a female Frenzy, and I absolutely love her design. I love the punk rocker aesthetic that she has with the shade, like the red shades that sort of resemble, or the red vibes that resembles shades, I should say. And she's kind of got this fake like comb over, which looks like she's got blue highlights in her hair too. I absolutely love her design, and she's even got like this electric guitar that functions as like a laser rifle too, that she's just playing all the time to disorient Megatron and Optimus. I love her design, and her voice is even better. For anyone who doesn't know, EarthSpark Frenzy is actually voiced by Tiana Carmacho, who you may recognize if you watch an anime, recently voiced Hermes in the English dub of JoJo Part 6, and I absolutely loved her performance as Hermes in the Part 6 dub, so it's great to see her as Frenzy. She definitely leans into Frenzy's whole punk rocker vibe, and that she absolutely loves messing around with Optimus and Megatron. There's one point where Optimus manages to catch her and hold her up, but she actually ends up doing like a sonic scream that disorients him. So once she breaks out, Laserbeak and Ravage also manage to get free, and all of them actually do a sonic scream that stuns Optimus and Megatron, just sort of pins them down, and they all go running off into the woods while Optimus and Megatron sort of just talk more. It's at this point where it's Optimus who really chastises Megatron further for not hunting down the cassette tape so seriously. And at this point again, Megatron tries to convince Optimus that perhaps that Ghost is in the wrong here, that Ravage, Frenzy, and Laserbeak aren't really doing any harm, that he agreed to work with Ghost on the grounds that the Decepticons got to live on Earth in peace. And to him, them just messing around with Agent Schloeder, even though we saw this off screen and not in the actual episode, is just more so of a harmless prank that doesn't necessarily dictate them being tracked down and hunted like a normal road Decepticon. And so it's really interesting to see this argument between Optimus and Megatron throughout this episode, where essentially Megatron constantly stresses that this isn't what he signed up for when he wanted to join Ghost and help him and Alita track down Decepticons. He wanted it as just a way to have peace between Autobots and Decepticons, and then just help round up the more troublemaking Decepticons. But to him, he really doesn't see Ravage, Frenzy, and Laserbeak as threats, so they should be let go. But Optimus doesn't see it that way and thinks that there's nothing that at working with Ghost, it's their duty to round up any Decepticons, big or small. So while Optimus and Megatron are arguing, we cut back to the Molto homestead, where Bumblebee is giving another lesson to Twitch, Thrash, Robbie, and Mo, this time about the usage, how good decoys can be, hence the name of this episode. So he's basically just talking about how important decoys are in a combat zone, and he inadvertently makes a rhyme in the process, which Robbie and Mo pick up on, and then started into like sort of a little jingle that they get B and even Twitch and Thrash to start singing constantly throughout this episode. There are a few people I see that have problems with this, but honestly, this is a kid's show, and you forget that Robbie, Mo, and Terrence are actual kids, so of course, if they're gonna make a game about this, that's totally understandable, and I actually like that, adds some more playful character to their characters, for lack of better terms. It's at this point, though, when Mo, of all people, suddenly gets a phone call from Optimus, where he calls her saying that Bumblebee needs to go get help to help him and Megatron take down Soundwave's cassette tapes. So it's at this point he tells Mo that someone else is coming to help out, and that is none other than Arcee, who finally makes her debut in EarthSpark. And I gotta say, I absolutely love Arcee's design and character in this. Compared to other versions of her like IDW, Prime, and G1 Arcee, EarthSpark Arcee, while design-wise, is still very similar to IEW and G1 Arcee. The fact that she's pink, she's got the same head mold with like the Princess Leia buns and all that. Her ult mode, though, is totally different. Well, like in G1, in IEW, for instance, she turns into just some generic Cybertronian sports car. In EarthSpark, she actually transforms into more of this, like, old school 50s, 60s hot rod car, and I absolutely love that. It's such like a unique ult mode for Arcee, and the way she acts in this is great. Like, first when Arcee arrives, Mo's totally fangirling out over her, like she's actually like reading a comic book all about Arcee, so she's obviously like super into her, and Arcee just seems to be loving the attention, and I absolutely love her dynamic with Bumblebee. When the second she comes in, she automatically starts like teasing and bullying Bumblebee. I can totally tell they've got like a big sister, little brother relationship in EarthSpark. It's really a nice change of pace from Prime Arcee, where Prime Arcee was still the big sister to Prime Bumblebee. It felt like more so Prime Arcee was very loving and gentle towards Bumblebee, but it's nice to see EarthSpark Arcee actually be a total bully to EarthSpark B and just tease him constantly, even though it's like her own way of showing affection. It doesn't mean like she actually hates him, and that's only further strengthened by her voice actress Martha Marion, who does a great job of voicing her, who interestingly enough hasn't really done a lot of other roles as far as I've been able to do research on. So this is like one of her first real big roles, and she absolutely kills it playing as this much younger but also a lot more outgoing Arcee. She reminds me a lot, actually, with Cyberverse Arcee in that regard, but where Cyberverse Arcee was still sort of pretty girly, like you saw her taking pictures, her whole thing was just her taking selfies all the time and hanging out with different animals. EarthSpark Arcee seems a lot more tomboyish in that regard, and I absolutely love her character. So it's at this point, when Arcee comes in, that B announces to Robbie, Mo, and the Terrans that she is going to be their teacher for the day, while Bumblebee heads out to go help out Optimus and Megatron, not telling them that it was actually Arcee that Optimus wanted to help them and not the other way around, because he just wants to go and do some field work for once. So while the episode focuses now on Arcee teaching Robbie, Mo, and the Terrans some new lessons, I'm going to go ahead and instead focus on Megatron Optimus' story from now, hunting Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak, because that's sort of the more important one right now. So eventually, the two of them do manage to catch up to the cassette tapes, and we get this hilarious scene where Bumblebee ends up catching up with Optimus and Megatron, specifically talking to Optimus, where Optimus questions why he's there instead of Arcee, and he explains that he thought that Arcee would be a better teacher for Twitch, Thrash, Robbie, and Mo in the meantime, and over him, so he offered to come and help out Optimus and Megatron. So while Optimus and B are talking, we see Megatron in the background struggling to capture Laserbeak and Frenzy because he's still holding back on them. There's this funny part where I'm not sure if it's Ravage or Laserbeak. One of them is on Megatron's face, disorienting him, causing him to walk backwards. And unbeknownst to him, Frenzy just crawls down and just crouches right behind him, gets on her arms and legs, and then just trips and lets Megatron trip on her. And it's literally the most hilarious background gag of this whole show so far. I absolutely love it. But though after that, Megatron gets back up and is like getting more fed up with Frenzy and all of them. So at this point, B reveals to Optimus and Megatron that he brought these sort of inhibitor locks that he can throw on the cassette tapes to essentially force them back into their cassette alt modes, which is interesting considering that Soundwave's alt mode now is a stealth bomber. Why would Soundwave still have his cassette tapes take the form of cassettes? You think that maybe they'd be like little drones or bombs on his stealth bomber mode, but that we'll talk about that another time. So anyway, first off, B throws one of the locks onto Laserbeak, who's flying around the sky, and manages to hit him, turning him back into a cassette, then hands the other two off to Optimus and Megatron, though when Megatron is offered one, Megatron seems totally disgusted by it and refuses to use it and subject the cassette tapes to basically forced transformation and imprisonment. So Optimus instead just takes both of them and uses them to capture Ravage or just actually Frenzy. I think he leaves Ravage alone for now. So he catches Frenzy and Laserbeak, puts them into his trailer while they're in a cassette form. And at this point, that Megatron lashes out at B and Optimus, basically explaining that this isn't what he signed up for when he wanted to work for Ghost, that he didn't want to willingly hunt down his Decepticons who are just really off doing nothing. And B actually sides with Optimus here, basically saying that regardless, all Decepticons need to be imprisoned if they're causing trouble. And that angers Megatron to no end. And it really makes you seem like Megatron really is trying to make some sort of peace here, that he joined Ghost because he wants peace between Autobots and Decepticons. Not that he went full Autobot, he just generally wants peace between Autobots and Decepticons. And with these arguments, it makes me feel like, first off, that it is true that Megatron isn't playing some sort of act here, that he's just waiting for the right moment to betray Optimus and everyone and then just betray everyone. No, I truly think Megatron does want peace, but the fact that he's constantly being challenged by Optimus and Bumblebee and Ghost to elect to some degree, it makes me believe that there may be a point where just Megatron just totally becomes disillusioned with Ghost and goes back on his word and just rejoins Decepticons. That may be the case at some point, but I don't think it's going to happen this season. Maybe at the very end of Season 1, but if not, it might happen in Season 2. But for now, I'm glad, though, that Megatron is wholeheartedly on Team Autobot, for lack of better terms. Eventually, the three of them do manage to capture Ravage as well, so then B loads up all of them into Optimus's trailer, and they head down a highway, presuming to take them back to a ghost base for imprisonment, as we saw back in episode 5. As they do this, though, they pass through a tunnel where Soundwave finally appears, unbeknownst to the three of them, and sends out a some sort of specific frequency that manages to disable the stasis locks that are on the devices that are holding the cassette tapes hostage. So they end up managing to break free from the locks and therefore break out of Optimus's trailer, unbeknownst to the three of them. So while Optimus and Bumblebee notice that Ravage, Frenzy, and Laserbeak have escaped, Megatron stays behind outside the other end of the tunnel to corner off Soundwave if he decides to come out. And it's this when we get our full proper look at EarthSpark Soundwave's design. And while I talked about him quite a bit when he first got revealed shortly before the New York Comic-Con trailer came out back in October, I gotta say again, seeing EarthSpark Soundwave's design in full, everyone is in the right here, and I think I'm speaking for everyone when I say here that EarthSpark Soundwave is legit the best redesign of any Transformer so far in EarthSpark. Absolutely is a fan favorite among the entire fandom. To me, this is definitively the best designed Soundwave of all time. Even better than Prime and G1 Soundwave, like IEW Soundwave. This is, without a doubt, easily my favorite design for Soundwave, and the fandom totally agrees. I've seen nothing but fan art of Soundwave for the past 2 months now, absolutely loving his design here, and his voice actor, Sean Kenan Reyes, does a great job of voicing a much more menacing and deeper pitched Soundwave, in my opinion. Reminds me a lot of Mark Swin's take on Cyberverse Soundwave in that regards, but yeah, everyone absolutely loves EarthSpark Soundwave, and maybe to a little bit too much sometimes. If some of the stuff on Twitter I've seen quite a few people thirsting over EarthSpark Soundwave, and that's only just because of just how great Nick Roche did with character design. Nick Roche, man, you did an absolutely amazing job with designing EarthSpark Soundwave, and it's great to see him on Twitter play into just how many people are thirsty over EarthSpark Soundwave for good reason. So while Soundwave frees all the cassette tapes, he ends up getting into a fight with Optimus and Megatron near the highway. So at this point, Optimus and Megatron are busy fighting Soundwave when we actually cut back to Arcee teaching all the Terrans as well as Robbie Mo some new lessons. So Twitch and Thrash immediately are excited because of all the stories they've heard about Arcee, thinking she's going to teach them new combat moves and all that, but instead she tasks them both, as well as Robbie and Mo, with just digging a bunch of trenches in the farm. So we get to see them just working super hard to the point of exhaustion, doing it all, and when they're done, she just makes them put it all back together. But it's at this point when Twitch and Thrash finally just had enough and basically just state how of an annoying teacher Arcee is, and explain that they know what they're supposed to be doing and they're not just gonna let Arcee push them around. It's actually, this is what Arcee was trying to teach them the whole time, and not to let anyone push you around like she was letting Bumblebee do earlier on by making her teach them. So after they realize what she was trying to teach them, they all decide to go head out to the quarry to help out Optimus, Bumblebee, and Megatron with dealing with Soundwave. So while Optimus and Megatron are busy fighting Soundwave in the quarry, Bumblebee is still up on the highway battling the cassette tapes when Arcee comes with Twitch, Thrash, Robbie, Mo. It's at this point, though, right when that happens, B gets knocked down to the quarry by, I believe, Frenzy or Laserbeak, and him knowing that Twitch and Thrash are in danger battling all the cassette tapes by themselves, desperately tries to go climb back up the quarry and save them, leaving Optimus and Megatron to battle Soundwave on their own. And I absolutely love the relationship between Megatron and Soundwave that's on display here. Rory McCann literally does an incredible job as Megatron in this episode. This is easily his standout episode as him, and absolutely love the sort of the pain he has in fighting Soundwave. That you can tell he doesn't want to fight Soundwave because arguably that was his most trusted confidant back in the Decepticons. So to see him being forced in a situation where he has to fight Soundwave now, you can clearly tell that Megatron doesn't want to do it, and he stresses Soundwave just to stand down because he doesn't want to fight him. But in an interesting twist that happens, Soundwave actually ends up playing a recording of Megatron's voice he had recorded earlier in that episode, basically chastising him for chasing after him and the rest of his cassette tapes, and that infuriates Megatron and causes him to lose his cool and attack him, which is a cool thing to see that we haven't actually seen any other version of Soundwave replicate other people's voices since Prime Soundwave about 10 years ago. So it's really cool to see EarthSpark Soundwave do this again. So I absolutely love EarthSpark Soundwave's fight here with Megatron Optimus, where he struggles to have them. He actually gives Optimus and Megatron quite a run for their money, which makes sense considering Soundwave was, for lack of better terms, the true second-in-command Decepticons. I know Starscream really is, but for mostly Soundwave was Megatron's most trusted member of Decepticons, and I love everyone on Twitter is calling this Soundwave's divorce arc, and literally, that's literally how it feels like, because Soundwave absolutely hates Megatron, which is a huge change of pace from how other incarnations of Soundwave just willingly devote themselves to Megatron, especially in the IDW comics, where after Megatron betrayed the Decepticons to become an Autobot, Soundwave willingly betrayed Decepticons with him too. He had no problem leaving them to follow Megatron. So now to see this EarthSpark Soundwave be so utterly betrayed by Megatron to the point where he just despises Megatron, I absolutely love that from a character standpoint. So with how much trouble Soundwave is giving Optimus and Megatron, Arcee decides to go actually down into the quarry to help them out with battling him, leaving Robbie, Mo, Twitch, and Thrash to fight Laserbeak, Frenzy, and Ravage all on their own, which Bumblebee is even more freaked out by. So while they're doing that, Laserbeak, Frenzy, and Ravage try to immobilize them all by doing like another group Sonic Scream on Twitch, Thrash, Robbie, and Mo. And so while they're trying to think of a way to stop it before I think it's like either they pass out their eardrums burst. At this point, I believe it's Robbie who gets the idea of trying to find a way to distract them and therefore use a decoy by using the same catchy jingle that they came up with at the beginning of this episode. And eventually, while singing it constantly, it does get Frenzy to start singing as well, and therefore pause the Sonic Scream long enough for Twitch and Thrash to fight Ravage and Laserbeak and dispatch them. So that leaves Frenzy though to fight Robbie and Mo, and while clearly Robbie and Mo can't exactly handle a full cassette tape, which is hilarious seeing how tall Frenzy is in comparison to Robbie and Mo, thankfully B finally manages to get up and take care of her while Twitch and Thrash finish out Laserbeak and Ravage as well. Now this is a good pairing in my opinion, considering that we saw Thrash struggle a lot with Frenzy. I mean, not Frenzy, with Swindle back in episode 4, and we even saw Twitch have a bit of trouble with all the Arachnamechs back in episode 6. It's cool to see now that they're slowly learning and using the abilities that they've learned throughout this whole season so far to become stronger, and therefore to the point where they're actually able to fight Ravage and Laserbeak, two of Soundwave's strongest cassette tapes, on sort of equal footing. Granted, they are still cassette tapes, but to them, they might just be as dangerous as any other Decepticon compared to like Thrash with Swindle, and I absolutely love that. Now, obviously, Robbie and Mo can't fight Frenzy because she's like twice their size, but it was cool to see that even then they were prepared to fight her, just like how Robbie was able to take on all the Arachnamechs with Alex back in episode 6, and I love that. That pretty much leads to the end of this episode, where after B defeats Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak, Optimus, Arcee, and Megatron do manage to defeat Soundwave as well, and have them all tied up outside this trailer. So Bumblebee puts all the stasis locks back on the cassette tapes, and Optimus loads Soundwave back into the trailer with them all ready to send them to Ghost for imprisonment. Though it's at this point where Megatron actually apologizes to Optimus for his earlier outburst, stating that he does truly want to help him and the Autobots with forming peace on Earth, but he just really doesn't want to fight Decepticons that aren't really doing anything wrong. It's at this point Optimus finally does agree to that and believes that he was being too hard on Megatron as well, and offers to let Ravage, Frenzy, and Laserbeak go if Megatron vouches for them, which he does. So he ends up removing the stasis locks off all of them, and they end up running off into the woods while Bumblebee, Optimus, and Megatron head out to go. Well, it's actually Optimus, Megatron, and Arcee head to go transfer Soundwave back to prison, while Bumblebee heads back with Twitch, Thrash, and the Terrans, with all of them having gained a little more experience. That, though, is where we get to the surprise ending of this episode. So, with the ending of this episode, we actually see Alita for a very brief moment with no voice, unfortunately, pushing Soundwave into his new cell, though this is where the twist comes in. So turns out the Ravage that we've been following this entire episode isn't even the real Ravage. We see Frenzy, Laserbeak, and Ravage inside the woods where Frenzy seems to be noticing that Ravage is acting weird and tells him that with Soundwave gone, all of them are free and don't need to follow him anymore. So that sort of implies that maybe Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak are sort of forcibly being contained by Soundwave, maybe? Is that what they're implying? But I'm not exactly sure about that. The real twist, though, comes, though, with when their Ravage's eyes suddenly light up, and that causes Soundwave's visor back in his jail cell to light up as well. And suddenly, out of his chest, another cassette tape pops up, and turns out that's the real Ravage. So the Ravage we've been following this entire time was just some mindless drone that Soundwave had created. So Soundwave uses his hands to create a small hole in his jail cell hologram door, just big enough for Ravage to jump out of, and orders Ravage to try and find a way to break him out of this jail cell. So while Ravage goes off to try and find a way to break out Soundwave, we get our final reveal this episode, and it makes me so happy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let this reveal play for itself. Yes, that's right. Finally, we have our first official look at Starscream's design for EarthSpark as the stinger at the very end of this episode. And I gotta say, I absolutely love Starscream's design. I'm not the biggest, it's not my favorite design compared to like IDW or Prime Starscream, but I really love how it's a unique take on G1 Starscream, more modernized. He's a bit sleeker. A lot of people are making fun of the fact that he's got sort of a goatee on his chin, but I honestly love his design. But honestly, the biggest thing that I'm most excited about with EarthSpark Starscream is who voices him. He only laughs a little bit. That was kind of hard for me to notice at first, but in the credits for the episode, it is officially confirmed that EarthSpark Starscream is voiced by none other than Steve Blum once again. So that makes me so happy to hear him back once again as Starscream. For any who don't know, he had previously voiced Starscream in Transformers Prime 10 years ago, though previously also returned to voice him back in Robots in Disguise 2015, about 5 years ago. So I think this is crazy, as it's the first time ever in Transformers history, I'm pretty sure, that we've had a voice outside of Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, where a Transformers voice actor has voiced the same character in multiple continuities. Of course, Steve Blum previously voiced Starscream back in Transformers Prime and RAT-15, but EarthSpark Starscream is not the same Starscream from Prime and Robots in Disguise 2015. This is a brand new Starscream that Steve Blum just happens to voice, though you can tell from the way he laughs, it is indistinguishable from his laugh as Prime Starscream, and that makes me so happy, because to me, Steve Blum is the definitive voice of Starscream, and it makes me so happy to hear that whenever Starscream returns, because unfortunately Starscream doesn't appear at all on episodes 9 and 10. I can't wait to hear more of Starscream when he shows up later on in Season 1. I can't wait to hear more of Steve Blum voicing him again. I got to meet him at New York Comic Con about 4 years ago, and it was so great to hear him and know that he's back once again as Starscream after so long, after his best role as Prime Starscream. It's absolutely wonderful to see. And for any who are wondering who can't even get enough of Steve Blum as Starscream after that, it's also been leaked through cutscenes that Steve Blum will be voicing Starscream again in the upcoming Transformers Reactivate video game. So that's now 3 different versions of Starscream that Steve Blum is voicing, and I am so happy for that, man. Guys have no idea how happy I am to see Steve Blum back as Starscream, and a lot of the fandom is too. Everyone is in love with EarthSpark Starscream, and I can't wait to see more of him. And so, that was my review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 1, Episode 8, Decoy. If I had to rate this episode, easily this episode gets a 10 out of 10. Without a doubt, the best episode of EarthSpark so far. Everything is great about this. The arguments between Optimus and Megatron, Rory McCann and Alan Tudyk's performances as those two are amazing. Soundwave has an amazing introduction. I love how different this Soundwave is from other versions, along with his cassette tapes. Ravage and Laserbeak are great, especially Frenzy. Tiana Carmacho did a fantastic job as her. We get introduced to Arcee as well, and Martha Marion is so good as playing this more upbeat, almost younger Arcee. And even for a lesser extent, Danny Pudi does a great job as Bumblebee here, and of course, people like Twitch and Thrash get a lot to do in this episode as well. It's cool to see their growth as this season's gone on. And of course, I can't forget the cliffhanger ending with Starscream revealing him as well. I'm just absolutely in love with this episode. I can't wait to see more of Starscream, Soundwave, Arcee, everyone. I just hope we get that second batch soon, guys. That's going to be this review. I'll be back next week with my final review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 1 so far, and that is episodes 9 and 10, Age of Evolution, parts 1 and 2. If you liked this review and can't wait for me to review the last 2 episodes of this first batch of Season 1, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later.